Hi, friends. My name's Host Derek. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. And tonight I've done something rather bold. I've titled my video live stream here incorrectly in terms of its grammar. The title should be Are Social Media Toxic? But that's not really convention. So I went with is. Quick answer, no, it's not. Long answer, sometimes, maybe. I was actually asked this question in a comment the other day, social media toxic, or more precisely, I was linked to a video in which two people were talking about the toxicity of social media. And I was asked to watch that and comment upon it, reply to it. I didn't watch it, of course, but I do have opinions about the subject. I tend to be annoyed anytime I hear on some sort of news media that social media is bad. Like, toxic, ontology destroying, whatever. Now, I want to stress that I do understand how it's sometimes used in that capacity. Like teenagers and shit, middle school kids, they bully each other via social media in ways that are quite harmful. I have no doubt about that. And it's certainly plausible to use it in harmful ways. But the thing is, and I also know that there have been occasions when I have gotten schooled on the internet or something, and it sticks with me and it weighs heavy on me. And so there are instances where sure, shit that happens on the internet gets taken way back to real life. But why is that such a bad thing, or why is that even surprising at all? Of course things that happen on the internet go back to real life. Otherwise the internet wouldn't be meaningful at all. It's like people are surprised and appalled that the metaphysical domain can possibly provide that, not be meaningful and impressive. Sarah Jasmine, if somebody tells you made it with Kim, yeah, well, we're still together and everything. I don't know what to say about that. I had a very interesting day in general. There was a stretch of the day where I honestly believe I went into FI, like conscious FI, for about 35 to 40 minutes. And I think what happened is I had so much pent-up FI over the course of the week and so many failed attempts to translate it into TI that it just, my FI just like broke through. And all of a sudden I was using FI. And, I mean, I understood what it was. It was a weird experience, to be perfectly frank. I don't even want to, almost don't want to tell you about it because it sounds like it's almost unbelievable. But, I was staring at the pond and somebody approached me. Maybe it was Kimberly. Hi, Zandy. Said something like, why are you so quiet, or what are you thinking about, or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm not. This isn't indicative of any specific particular mood. This is me trying to figure out how I feel about things. It takes a long time, I see. It's complicated. And the reason was because Kimberly showed me a clip to a Dr. Phil show that had multiple messages in it. It was a Dr. Phil show about somebody with her exact problem, namely this sort of failure to acknowledge shit. And of course, the Slabs delivered that episode today, perfectly timed. So she showed me part of it, and she wanted me to sort of take away one of the messages from it, which was be gentle. You can't force this sort of thing, and approach the person with an open heart and hope that they are at some point willing to make progress in that area. But the core takeaway of the message was, cut ties with such people. They're not worth your time. They're going to continue to act as they've always acted. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And so when she showed me this clip, naturally I was like, well, what are you trying to tell me? You're saying I should just cut you loose? I mean, it's the sort of thing she typically has said in the past. And I was sort of sitting out there trying to figure out how I felt about it, because it seemed to me she was saying a message like, cut me loose, or or don't expect anything, which is not the message she was actually trying to send, though. This is sort of miscommunication that I have with her all the time. She shows me this clip that has that as the message. I presume that's what the message she intended me to glean from it. But this time, as I was calculating different things that I value and such, I understood that there were some things I needed to ask her, and they were unlike my usual questions. I went up to the front and I said to her, I started sort of my normal approach, except with a feelings basis. But I said, okay, so how did you feel about the message regarding being patient and not forcing it and so forth and so forth, so on? She said, well, I felt like it resonated with us, that it spoke to our situation. And then I said, well, how did you feel about the message that one should cut such a person loose? And she said, oh, well, I didn't watch the whole episode, so I don't really know what that was about. Now, keep in mind, we were talking about this takeaway section. She hadn't watched the whole episode, but she took away from the takeaway message the part that she wanted to take away from it. But then I pointed out that, well, what about this other part? She's like, oh, well, I couldn't know anything about that because I didn't watch the whole episode, because she didn't particularly like that takeaway message or whatever. But instead of doing what I normally do, which is going like, come on, can really work with me here. This is ridiculous. I'm trying to make a point. I'm saying, what message are you trying to send me here? But I paused and I said, well, what question are you really trying to ask here, Eric? Because you're trying to make her walk along with you so she'll learn something in that capacity. But what is the real question you're trying to ask? And the real question I'm trying to ask is, does the thought of losing me bother you? Does it hurt you, or do you fear that possibility? And so when you won't tell me anything about how you feel about Dr. Phil's message that I should cut such a person loose, and you avoid answering the question, and then you tell me that, well, you didn't have any feelings about Dr. Phil's position on that, when I finally do get her down to the fact that, like, okay, but you do understand what the position is, and can you please tell me what your feelings are about that position that he was stating? She says, well, I don't have any feelings about that. She's not trying to tell me, like, I would interpret that traditionally almost every time as, okay, she's trying not to hurt my feelings, but basically she's telling me she doesn't care if I cut her loose at all. She'd be probably happier without me, but she doesn't want to say it quite that rough or something. That's how I would just interpret it normally. And then I get my feelings hurt, and I try to get her to talk it out with me and explain to me what's going on. Instead, I just said, okay, well, forget Dr. Phil then. How would you feel? How do you feel when you think about me leaving? Oh, and she said, well, yeah, I feel scared. It makes me feel sad and scared about that. And I'm like, because that's not the message you're sending me, right? And she had some sort of awareness to that a bit. But the point is, as long as I try to make our conversations something whereby I'm revealing an objective truth to her by way of us both agreeing on facts and making compromises, if I actually talk about the thing I'm actually curious about or wondering about instead, like, why is this so important to me that she, blah, 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 instead of asking her, trying to pin her down, trying to make her translate into my terms, why don't I try to learn her language a little bit and go, okay, well, you just said, like, let's say she said something mean to me, kind of offhanded or cutting, thinking she's teasing, but I'm kind of sensitive about teasing in a relationship. I never had any of that shit in my growing up. Like my family, we didn't tease each other. But regardless, instead of being like, well, you said blah, that means you mean blah, or whatever, I just be like, okay, so that, I don't like the way that makes me feel. How do you feel when I tell you that? Because that's what I really want to know. She's telling me she has contempt for me. She's expressing in her tone and in other ways that she's completely invulnerable, and she has no patience or compassion for my vulnerability. But in reality, I think what she's experiencing is that I'm rejecting her in some way. And so if I ask her how it makes her feel when I tell her, I don't like how you way you did that make me feel, well then I have a possibility of actually getting somewhere. What do you actually feel? That's kind of more important than your willingness to play along with my dance of symbols of values rather than real things. I mean, I don't mind teasing. I just don't like it at all, frankly. I don't like teasing at all because what it's doing is it's always saying, um, I'm going to tread the line of intentionally harming you or taunting you or making fun of you for somebody else for the enjoyment of other people, like for my own personal benefit and being seen as funny guy or whatever. I just don't like it at all. You know, I've never liked it. I certainly don't like it in my relationship. Yeah, well, I mean, Kimberly was learning not to tease me. It took a little while. At first, she would just say I was being oversensitive or whatever, but now she understands that it really doesn't matter if I'm being oversensitive. I don't want to be teased, and I'm not going to put up with it. That's the bottom line. Is like, um, both ISFJs and ESFJs stop teasing as soon as you don't play that game, right? It's like, I was just teasing. I know, that's the problem. Teasing's fucking stupid. You shouldn't do it. It makes people like me very angry. Seems careless. Yeah, I'm really sensitive. That's why I'm informing you that I think it's fucking stupid. And it's like you make them really awkward feeling when they do it. Make them feel really fucking awkward. My sense ESFJ father's primary mode of communication is teasing. It is fucking horrible, and it needs to be checked in the way I just did. You know, it's like don't allow it to be glossed over. Point it out directly and say, "I'm offended by your behavior." You think that's funny or something, but it's just a fucking awful way to communicate. Justify yourself. Then they won't do it anymore. They don't like being called out like that in public at all. Yeah. I mean, it immediately escalates. The thing is, as soon as you give any, I don't care, then fine. I won't care about you then either. Or fine, then I won't be helpful with anything either. Anytime I try to go there, it immediately escalates to fine, let's blow up the world. She just will not be leveraged at all. She is extremely sensitive about giving up control. I mean, sensitive is not the right word, but you know what I mean. So it's extremely skittish about it. I mean, that's the thing, Ron Morgan. He refuses to acknowledge there's anything wrong with it. I mean, but he's being allowed to do it. That's the thing. It's like if he does it in front of me, I make it the issue, you know. If he does it a couple of times, he does it to me, you know. I insist on he address it in front of everybody right now. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes being called to the carpet in front of everybody. It makes a lasting impression on them. Unless you're maybe polar FE, maybe you don't care. I don't know. Yeah, teasing is, what's the purpose here? To rile, to get reactions, involuntary reactions out of sensitive people. Non-consensual shit like that bothers me. No, I don't think that would work, Sarah Jasmine. I appreciate the input. I'm not saying I necessarily know what is going to work. I'm just saying that what has worked so far, in the sense that it hasn't failed completely, is my persistence in always telling her, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to give up on you. And it doesn't matter how angry or whatever I am. It doesn't change my basic position on you and that I love you and blah, 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 right? I've maintained that for almost the entire relationship, with a couple of exceptions when I was just driven to fucking, I had no capacity to take anymore or something. Oh yeah, I mean, there you go, Rowan. Exactly. It doesn't really bother you when he teases you, but if he's teasing your kid, I mean, yeah. No, we're not getting a divorce. We're not married, by the way. I call her my wife, but we're not married. I am wearing a wedding ring right now. This is an interesting story behind this wedding ring. This is her ex-husband's wedding band. She got her rings back today from this evil aunt of hers who had been hiding them, basically. Anyway, well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate what you're saying there. We hope that our unconditional love will heal them. I genuinely hope it does in your case. I mean, it's already healed a lot. That's the thing I tend to forget. I have a problem with not, expecting solutions to be instant and complete rather than taking time. She and I, she doesn't talk to me in nearly the awful way she used to. She used to really tell a lot of ontological stories that were negative. I mean, just can't have good self-esteem in some ways. What I see as stubbornness is self-protection. She was raised in a family, for example, that was always telling her she was too fat and stuff like that. Like horrible shit. Like that shit was never even dream of being tolerated in my family. There was absolutely no critiques of people's physical persons at all permitted. It was insane to even consider it. That was what enemies do to each other, So I can't even conceive of growing up in that fucking environment. It must have been a fucking nightmare. And when I think about it too much, it makes me incredibly sad. But yeah, at the beginning of the relationship, when we fought, she'd tell stories about what an awful person I was and all the reasons why I was an awful person without ever saying a single thing about my behavior, without ever saying anything that I did. She'd just fucking attack my ontology. And she stopped doing that a long time ago because I talked to her about it and I explained it to her and I said, look, this is what you're doing. We had a big long conversation. I recorded it, actually videoed it. And at the end of it, we recapped. I went through it. I said, listen, look at this thing. There's not one thing in this whole long list of complaints you have that's about anything that I've done or any behavior of mine. They're all just stories about what an awful human being I am, built on nothing but just your own fucking fictions, like the worst possible psychological analysis of why this happened is because I'm a lazy, conniving fuck or whatever, And it's just like, and it wasn't even something I did, it was just something that happened or something. So that's how she used to be. And she's made massive changes, and I tend to forget that she has. This last little step where I'm looking for her to cooperate with me is basically saying, Now all you got to do is this little bit of power exchange with me, and we'll be great. But the thing is, she's doing her best to show me that she trusts me in lots of different ways, and that she values me in lots of different ways. And she's just, I happen to be hitting her one spot where she just is really fucking bound up in defenses. So, yeah. Is there ever going to be a time you have tests for all the polar functions? I don't think so, because, like, the reason the SI and TI polar tests are so good, and to a lesser extent the NE polar test, but still effective, but not as 100%, is that they're skills tests, that you can't game them, that for people who are polar in that, they genuinely can't do the thing. And you can push hard to check. You can give them lots of hints. They still can't do it, you know? It's pretty cut and dry. The problem with NI, I can't come up with a skills test for it. I can't come up with a skills test for, I can come up with skills tests for SE, but even when I do think of ones that would be good, I'd have to be there in person maybe or something. I think it's sort of like, well, assign a bunch of random pointless little tasks to check off a list of things to do on the internet, but then it becomes a test. So it's got non-SE qualities too. It's got FE qualities and shit like that. Is there a way to test for countervalued TI or FI? Well, you'd be looking for TE or FE as a tool function. It's easier to test for demonstrative than countervalued. Now, no, they're both. So my 6-slot function is both countervalued in my own life and demonstrative. It's like, it's what I expect people to expect me to be able to do if they're going to consider me valid. So I give myself that responsibility. Like, okay, it's the reasonable responsibility of everybody to expect me to know how to do things and to tell them how to do things. So I feel like responsible to provide that and feel comfortable when I am providing that in a lot of very different contexts, such as this one right here. I'm talking about how to test for things, right? This is demonstrative TE. You might say, well, you don't countervalue TE, Eric. You're talking about how to do shit all the time, right? I don't apply any of it hardly in my own life. I'm rarely attending to what's efficient. Abraham told a story on one of the videos on Susie's channel, in fact, about how watching me do shit, he wants to periodically interject and say, what are you doing? But you know that I've worked it out eventually, and maybe kind of an inefficient way of getting there, but I like to do shit my own way. So it's true. I countervalue it in my life, and I also demonstrate it to other people. If your love is strong, hang in there for as long as you see progress. Yeah, I will. And I want to stress that for all of my venting here online, much of the time that Kimberly I spend together, in fact, all of it, we're not fighting, we get along great, and we genuinely enjoy each other's company. And you know, when things are going well, we're like a perfect couple. There's lots of things about her that I don't feel I can easily enough replace at all either. Like, she's a perfect fit in with the channel. Now, granted, in this particular way it's played out, our relationship is splayed all out over the internet. That bothers her more than she's conveyed to me sometimes, and I'm starting to learn that. Like, she's not spending a lot of time telling me, hey, Eric, you know, I want you to be more careful, more private, or whatever. I think she just sort of felt like she had no power over it. She had more power than she thought. She could have just talked to me about it more. But even so, what I've been stressing is, Kimberly, I try to paint the best possible narrative given the reality I have, which is, if you're behaving badly towards me, I got a couple of choices. Either I position it as you're an awful bitch, or you're expressing some damage or something. No, not Becky. That's Susie we're hosting again. Susie is not actually here. She's at Abraham's house in Omani. But yeah, Susie, I had to go to the airport tonight. The slabs were extremely cooperative with me today. Earlier in the evening, Kimberly said, okay, well, I really want to get this house picked up tonight. I'm like, well, I'm not really feeling it. Do you want me to take Adderall now? It's kind of late in the day. I might be able to get the energy for it. I'm kind of running low. It's going to be sleep week pretty soon. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, take it. And I took it, but I still wasn't feeling like cleaning. And then my dad called. It's like, I got to go to urgent care. You can come over and watch your mom. I went over to my dad's to watch my mom. Picked her up, said, let's go to McDonald's, Mom. Because I was hungry. We went through McDonald's. Abraham called me. Susie's missed her plane. So it's like, from that moment forward, I went to go get Susie from the airport and come back and took my mom and parked and did all that kind of shit, right? The whole process was such that I got to my dad's, I picked up my mom, I immediately got called by Abraham, basically. And then by the time I got back from this airport with Susie, I was literally 2 minutes from my dad's house when my dad called me to say he was back home. So the timing of it was just like all that time that it took me to go deal with Susie in the airport would have been wasted anyway. I would have been just sitting around with my mom waiting for my dad to get back from the doctor. So it was a beautiful bit of bird killings with one stone with multiple birds. If people are to game the test, as you say, aren't they only hurting themselves by not taking the test properly? So it becomes less of a worry of people gaming them. Well, I mean, the thing is, FI people don't know they're gaming it. They don't, because they don't get the concept of it in some sense. It's certain kind of FI people, like FI second slot. They know what they want to be and what they feel like they are. If they know they want to be an ENTP, they will want to get the answers that say ENTP and somehow miss the fact that it's an objective description, So that's interesting. Winston, Mom, I'm glad to hear you've watched some of the older videos and gotten some sense of my big picture. I have a couple of videos that are called retrospective videos. I think there's 2 of them, and I think they both have the word retrospective in it. So if you channel search for that, those are edited videos that tell, like, I began the channel and blah, 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 blah. My first video upload was this one. And then I went to, no. I was trying to, at the time, I was talking about work stuff. And then, it's like that, It's like a narrated 10-minute long stills and narration video, which is linear in process and, linear in progression from when I started the channel. I only did two chunks of it, of course, before I put back burner that project, but I plan to do part 3 and 4 and 5 eventually. If anybody's interested in sort of the backstory of the channel a bit, laid out in fairly neat and edible sizes, then chunks, then check those videos out. You just channel search for retrospective. That's a good way to get a quick look at the back picture. Yeah, it's kind of pointless to watch them in order. It's like this has obviously not been following any sort of plan, right? I know what I'll do. I'll make shit tons of random videos at random times and not have any plan. That's my plan. So yeah, the other thing is, if I want to try to establish definitively somebody's a given type, or at least to eliminate the possibility somebody else is another type, then having a polar test that's a skills test like that is extremely helpful, because somebody go, well, I interpret their answer to mean this. Well, I interpret their answer to mean this. Well, here's their impossibly bad score on their SI test. Explain that. How do you explain that? Oh, well, I'm just doing metaphorical interpretations of things they said, of self-reporting. Okay, well, here's some actual data, though. So what do you want to do with that? Then you can win some arguments, right? You can't really win arguments when everything's interpretive. And there's nothing concrete and hardcore empiric to nail down and say, this is clearly a blind spot. Normal people, in fact, everybody who doesn't have this polar can do meh, but they can't. So how else do you explain it typologically? Do I attempt to improve my SE? I attempt to improve my life with SE. I don't really focus on improving my SE very much. I kind of focus on improving my relationship with SE and SI, which is to say I concern myself somewhat with not taking on too much stuff, and I definitely concern myself with following through on things that I'm committed to that are like client things. So I never blow out work or anything like that. You know, if I have a typing that somebody's paid for, I book it for a scheduled slot. I'm there right on time. You know, I'm giving them more than the full amount of time they paid for, at least a little bit, and you know, being as professional as I can, the things that people could articulate that they might critique, and make sure I don't give them any ammunition. Okay, well, maybe gaming is the wrong word then for FI users. I don't know what you'd call it. Wishful thinking the test. You know, if the way that your TI is being tested is you're being asked questions like, "Are you logically incisive?" Well, FI user is going to answer that yes. A TI user is going to say, "Well, I don't know if I'm really being objective about this. Sort of," and then that's going to skew your test, right? Neither of them are gaming it, but the fact that it's a self-reporting thing about which there's normative standards in the status quo as a default society-wide, in other words, it's considered good to be logical and smart, then there's going to naturally be a difference between what the question is asking and what the person answers and what a third party would answer. The more subjective, the higher up FI is, or the further away FI is from polar or something, the more likely you are to have trouble answering questions about yourself because your subjective calculi are more powerful than your objective calculi. It's easy for me to self-report accurately, and I've even gotten to the point where I can self-report accurately stuff that's highly positive, which is something I didn't used to be able to do because I'd assume I have to calculate away some bias. And I realized I actually don't need to. I just need to actually just apply my normal unbiased calculus, and I can trust it. I don't necessarily engage in hedging as much as I used to. What might be called false modesty, but would better be called something like hedging. Like, I want to make sure I can defend this claim. I watched a video TE peculiarity calculator video with Opaloid, and I was interested. Would you agree that TE is more concerned with assigning usefulness to bits of data and applying logic to? Yeah, right. Well, I mean, sometimes it was not. False modesty or humble brag. Again, you might critique that as having a connotation that I'm not trying to imply here. It's like it's true that gaming implies active deception, and I wasn't trying to convey that. So that's a good distinction Blue Note were made, but I want to go back to Winston Mom's comment in a second, but I would say number one thing about TE is that it's the logic of the system that you're dealing with. So I was thinking about fly swatters this morning. I was using a fly swatter out in the driveway there, killing flies, and thinking to myself, because it took me a couple of days to find the fly swatter, of course. I go, where's the fly swatter? I look for it for a couple minutes, then get distracted by something else. And then next time I want to swat flies, I go, oh, yes, fly swatter. Where's that fly swatter? So anyway, I was struck by how the logic of killing flies is a perfect example of TE logic. If you have a fly swatter, it's pretty easy to kill flies. If you don't have a fly swatter, it's almost impossible. The ultimate, axiom of TE is right tool for the right job, because every job has its own logic, so it needs to have all these specific tools. There are some things that generalize out, like, if I have this cool grinder cutter thing that I got, it's pretty damn useful in a lot of different contexts. It's one of the more useful tools I've gotten in a long time. It's more useful than any tools I currently had, really, except for a drill. Drill is very multi-useful. Hammer is pretty useful, multiple different things. But there's all kinds of shit that just needs a specialized tool for just that thing. What do you need to kill a fly? Well, you can get a fly trap. There's lots of different ways you can do it. But if you actually want to kill a specific fly, what you really need, if you and you don't want to spray poison all over the place, which I don't like to do, you need a fly swatter. There's potentially other ways you can get flies, but the most effective, simplest, best, whatever, is a fly swatter. I don't chop my weed. What do you mean chop it? With an axe? Let's see. Organize or assimilate them into real world applications and importing information to others. I mean, the thing is, I think it's backwards to say that. It's that there's a system that somebody is approaching with some sort of FI attachment or detachment or whatever towards it. Like, okay, the supervisor Bob said we need to get all of these boxes over there into that thing, and to try to, make them all fit. So the different shaped boxes, different sizes and shapes of boxes, and it doesn't really look like they're all going to fit. But I bet if we, place them all perfectly, then they will fit. Well, that's going to require you then to use TE because there's a specific problem. It's important to remember that there is no TE, but that there is a specific problem first. In other words, TE, nice, conveniently, is the first two letters of teleology. It's all about the purpose of things. And so when we think like, TE is taking these ideas and putting them in, no, it's not. It's always in the frame of solving a specific problem. It's about a specific logic, non-communicative. We tend to try to make it, TI users tend to try to make TE into some sort of communicative logic, like, well, it's what's the most universally true for everybody in terms of utility. No, it's not. It's not TE at all. TE is particularist. TE is about logics not universal, like killing flies. TE didn't take the idea of killing flies and render it into something that was useful to everybody. Somebody said, I want to kill flies, and my current way of trying to smack them with my hand is ineffective. What should I do? How about this stick of wood with a hand on it? No, that's still not. I need something that's like, pap. And then somebody came up with a fly swatter, And then the reason it's taken off as a universal thing is not because TE cared at all about its universality. It's because TE found the best solution thus far. Now, somebody else might come up with a better solution. Okay, so this is an interesting, very, very interesting comment. Corvo Atano. If in fact what happened there happened, you almost certainly hit an ENFJ. ENFJs have a set of SI-like stories that they have in a repertoire that they tell for various social purposes. Their SI-like stories have differing degrees of truth to them depending on the awareness level of the ENFJs. Most ENFJs begin their childhood and get in trouble because they're constantly lying, because they don't get the fact that those SI stories other people are telling are actually remembered experiences. Since they don't remember any such experiences, they presume, naturally, that the other people must just be making them up. So that's quite plausible. You can test SI on a guy who later claimed to have gamed with NI. In that case, if he knew what you were looking for in the test and was trying to fool you, then I guess he would have gamed it. If instead he was displaying his own fire engine fallacy phenomenon, then that's what that was. The fire engine fallacy phenomenon being, if you imagine yourself being just like everybody else except deaf to fire engine sirens, but you notice that every time a fire engine goes by, people put their fingers in there and go, that's loud, So with the lights on, every time a fire engine goes by with the lights on, people do that. And so you start doing that. And most of the time you're going to be right. It's going to be like the fire engine's going by, the siren's on. The lights are on, the siren's loud. And so you're going like this, and so are other people. But sometimes the lights will be on, the fire engine will be going by, and they're not going to be playing the siren. And nobody else will be going like this. And you'll still go like this. And you'll look around and go like, why isn't everybody doing this? That's what we do when the lights go by with the fire engine, right? And people look at you like, you don't get fire engine sirens, do you? Well, that's well, if he's an ESFP, then he would be able to answer SI questions, no problem. It would be demonstrative. No, I'm sorry, it would be ignoring. He'd be able to answer no problem at all. Like ESTPs provide both NI and SI kinds of knowing to answer the questions pretty evenly. ENTPs do it as well. If I ask an ESTP like Taylor about stories from jail, he'll tell me a lot of specific stories from jail. And that's just normal. If you ask me, what's the best poem here of these five? I'll tell you which one's the best one and why I think it is, and how there's certain synergistic elements I can't actually deconstruct, but more or less, these are some of the reasons why it's the best one. I'll use NI all the time and SI both. So 4-5, it's not a test that gives you much. I mean, it'll just tell you you're not polar for sure, and maybe you're not dominant for sure, or something like that, but it won't really give you any more information than that if they're 4-5. Imagine this water bag thing was enforced. What is a water bag? You mean to bring flies around? I don't know. The thing that attracts flies is dog food, wet dog food. Let's see. Cut it up, mix it with tobacco. Oh, you mix your marijuana with tobacco? Yeah, I don't like that at all. I guess Europeans do that, because Susie rolled a joint earlier today and it passed it to me and I hit it and I was like, is there tobacco in this? There was. She mixed it with rolling tobacco. Well, that's not something we do in America. I don't understand why you guys do that. I get it. Like, well, help save the weed. You don't waste weed, or it goes more slowly or something. But I don't like smoking it with tobacco because tobacco is a lot harsher than weed. You can pull a bong rip of weed. You'd never want to try to pull a bong rip of tobacco. That would be fucking lung cough time 2000. TE could be described as taking a step back from the problem, coming up with the best solution. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely is taking a step back and waiting for a second, because when you're trying to be ordinal, you're saying, I'm not going to treat this as a stir fry where I toss new things in and taste it and I could use a little bit more and toss that in. That's how I like to make things. I'm going to instead be like baking. Okay, I need exactly 2.5 cups of whatever and put it on for this temperature exactly in this many minutes. And of course, if you're doing baking, it's very ordinal and it's about precision and execution of a plan. And if you're doing stir fry, if you're doing like improvisational rock and roll or something, it's not so much about a plan. In fact, it's very much about not having a plan and letting your instincts carry you where they may. Let's see. I agree with you, Eric. I just think the imperfections of personality psychology, there should be tests for all polar functions. Just people may be able to gain them consciously or unconsciously, because former people are hurting themselves. Well, I do sort of have. I mean, I have tests for the other ones, but the thing that makes a polar test distinct from just any kind of test for a function is that it's saying, I can specifically nail down the slot definitively if you score lower than whatever on this. And I have tests for, say, FE. I can tell FE polar, and I can ask questions that suggest FE polar or not. But the thing is, I trust my instincts. Oh, I am Thrasher. You are an amazing patriot, an amazing American. Let freedom ring indeed, Amber Thrasher. Let freedom ring. And tonight, I'm going to share with you, Amber Thrasher, my new bong here. I got it today, and I want to show you something right here for the 4th of July. Oh, yeah. It's made in the United States of America, right here in the U.S. of A. Now, tonight, Amber Thrasher will be transubstantiating for you this weed, which I believe is called Jet Fuel. That one is called Jet Fuel. This may be race fuel. And we got 2 different fuels. Regardless, it's one of the fuels, okay? Probably race fuel. They're both top shelf, Kano shelf. So pretty stony. Okay, I don't always get Kano, but we had out of town guests. We got the fourth coming up. It was like, fuck it, I'm going for Kano. Thane Townsend, thank you very much for asking. There's a thing called Super Chat, which Amber's used there, and there's supposed to be something called like Super Stickers, but I've never seen anybody use one yet. Reportedly, those things, the Super Stickers should be there. You should be able to like instead of paying for Super Chat, you could choose to pay for a Super Sticker that doesn't. I haven't been able to access it or see it. They tell me it's there, but it's not. I don't see it anywhere. Anyway, tomorrow is pinging my concerned are. Okay, I will be careful tomorrow. Thank you for the magical thinking slabbery stuff. I appreciate that. I really actually do. You know, I'm a lot more magical thinking than a lot of TI users, perhaps, but probably not in the way that people would normally think that means. Probably most people probably think that means I'm somehow less rational. I don't perceive it as being less rational. I perceive it as being of basically getting intelligence on more channels. That's one way to put it. I shall pull this bong riff for you, Amber Drasher. Amber Drasher, so abundantly well deserved for so many different reasons. Do I hereby transubstantiate this delicious bong riff in my new bong? Because of course I broke the old one already. Broke the last one. Broke the last one like fucking 2 days after I got it. You know, big ass bong. Anyway, good thing bongs are getting cheaper. Transubstantiate this bong for you and Amber Drasher on this 4th of July. Happy America Day to you. Let freedom ring in the talons of a million bald eagles, exploding into the spectacular fireworks of America's founding fathers, blowing up inside of a pool. That one might have been a bit of a bell ringer there, Amber. If that was a little bit too much of a bell ringer, I'm sorry. Of course, I couldn't feel it myself. But Rowan Martin, you dabble with writing, but it's difficult. Thanks, Thane Townsend. That's very kind of you. Much appreciated. I like the fact that they're New Zealand dollars too. You know, I don't normally get those, and I think they have a picture of a kiwi bird on them, don't they? I have offered to type her before, and she's welcome to email me anytime. And basically, you know, I want to send her a bunch of shit. You know, whatever she wants. Obviously, she's not sent me her address. I don't think she's particularly interested in being typed, but I will reiterate what Blue Nowhere says is, you know, obviously you have full VIP access, whatever you want. You got my number, you got my email. Call me, talk to me, whatever. Kimberly and I will gladly send you a box of shit. And you'll be like, oh, here's a bunch more crap to fit in my house. It says talking to famous people on it. Fantastic. Yeah. So, Zandy, real life stories are helpful. Parables are helpful. How about aphorisms? How about analogies? Somebody asked me the other day in a video, can I please describe analogical thinking as though to a first grader? And I would like to try to do so. Analogical thinking is the purview primarily of INTPs and ENTPs. and it is NENTI combined. The reason it's analogical thinking is because, I mean, I don't know why it is, but what it is specifically is the habit of finding analogous. Thank you, Basil Esposito. Happy 4th to you too. How nice of everybody tonight. It's like I've been feeling embattled around here, and Amber, you really came in and made me feel, like I had some alliance here earlier when I was feeling embattled. It's nice to feel like, I got allies and friends and people being super nice to me, and I really do appreciate when people do that shit. It just shocked the fuck out of me when it first happened. And it was like, what is that thing? And interestingly, it makes me think, Becky was the first person to ever super chat me, I think. They were Canadian dollars. I was like, what the hell is that thing that you just did? I don't even know what that is. And Kim's like, do we have to pay $5? Something like that, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. Do we have to pay $5? Anyway, that's one of the things I wanted to say too is, for all the troubles I've had this week and everything, and the drama or what have you, my goal is was never to say, and I never did say, and I do not believe it ought to be the case that Becky become persona non grata. Chloe is persona non grata. Courtney, or old Courtney, is persona non grata. Because they actually harmed the channel, and they did things I couldn't forget. But I've always felt and said, the reason I was angry at Becky was because I still have value. I still value her to some extent. It's like I didn't lose concern for her, even though I may have lost respect. And she can regain my respect because I understand that people make mistakes. I made plenty of mistakes in my life too. I'm not going to condemn somebody on their moment of hubris gone bad. It's not my goal. But what I said also is the reason it's acceptable for the reason it's acceptable. Well, train of thought because I read my mom's comment. I keep doing that all the time on live stream. I'm in the middle of one thought, and then my eyes wander over to I should always look at the camera when I'm talking. Turn back that way, and then maybe that would fix the problem. I don't even remember what I was talking about. Something. I was meandering. I've carried the idea of a story around since I was 16, and it's almost writing itself now. The fun thing is that host Eric is the face for one of my characters now. Huh. Cool. I like that. Yellow-eyed penguin. Lol, the Monterey cam has a good penguin cam. I want to hang out with penguins like Mr. Poppers. We don't have any penguins here. Hopefully we won't find an injured one in the gutter anywhere soon. Then we'll have a penguin. The last few streams were during sleep time. This one's during my sleep time, but I'm still up because I'm still up. I'm tired, actually. Hi, Shreddy Chandra. And I was trying to answer, I think it might have been your question about analogical reasoning. Analogical reasoning is the reasoning of relationships, of equivalency. So, Barack Obama demonstrated it when he said in that debate something along the lines of, because his opponent was saying, these are deficit areas, these are ways in which our military has gotten smaller, things we don't have anymore, or whatever. And Obama's like, and our military also has dramatically fewer muskets and cavalry units. So ought we replenish those as well? It's the process of applying a person's logic to a comparable but different set of specifics that renders that logic into a different frame. It's basically framework in general is analogical reasoning. Framework says things aren't as they are, things are as they're framed. And if you don't do framework explicitly, then you're necessarily going to be viewing things as they are through an implicit frame of some sort. So it's not like the frame doesn't exist if you're not framing it. It's like your frame is implied by your lack of framework, but by your lack of framework and what it is you're saying. So analogical reasoning, then, to get back to the main point here, is equivalency of relationships. If it's appropriate for let's say everybody in a culture thinks that the normal way to discipline a child is to spank them on the bottom of the ruler when they've misbehaved in some fashion. It's completely the norm in all families at home. Well, then public school is likely going to have that as well, because analogical reasoning will say, why is it that parents hit their kids or get to hit their kids or should hit their kids? Well, it's because kids need to be disciplined when they misbehave, and that's a good way to discipline them. And then they'll say, well, where else do kids misbehave and need to be disciplined? At school. Therefore, if that justification works to justify parents hitting kids, it should justify teachers hitting kids as well. So usually, a long time ago, around like in America or whatever, in places where spanking was common, they'd have corporal punishment at school too. And then gradually that got phased out because analogical reasoning always breaks down at some point. It's never going to be the same thing. You're not talking about the actual thing that person's talking about. You're saying your framing, I'm exposing your framing here. In other words, your logic applied elsewhere looks very different. I'm saying what you say is yours is now yours plus this. And you didn't want that, but now that you have that with you too. And people go, if you can marry people within your own gender on the grounds that you love them, then polygamy and polyandry are valid also under the scheme. Yeah, that would be analogical reasoning, sure. The thing is, there's lots of different ground on which people might be validly said. White people, I mean, yes, to answer your question shortly, in a short fashion. Well, it is very TI, but the thing about it is, it looks more or less like TI sometimes than others. So if I just look at an analogy by itself, I'd say sock is to foot as blank is to hand. And you'd say glove. If I'd said shoe is to foot as blank is to hand, you'd still say glove. The analogy is something that goes on your, But you'll note that the same analogy applies with two different things, right? So that's why analogy breaks down at a certain point, is that the relationship is somehow less specific than the thing itself. Like, there's a set of things that can fall under the relation. I mean, yeah, the relationship is a set of things. Like, there's probably a finite but very large set of instances that would fall under that analogy of thing covering other thing, So, thing covering other thing is a relationship between two things. It's, analogical thinking is sort of like the prepositional phrases of verbal reasoning. They relate two or more things in time, space, or context. Thank you, Hambone. Thanks. I appreciate that. That's great. Nice to see you. Hi, Kangan Krishna Sarma Pagu. I really like that, your name. I always get a kick out of saying that. Kankan Krishna Sarma Pagu. Such a long name. Is that really your name? That it can't possibly be your real name. Or maybe it is. Who knows? It seems like a real name, but it's just like, really, Kankan Krishna Sarma Pagu. It's a lot of. It's a mouthful. I've spoken to a couple of ENFP women, and you just sound the same. You don't even know what she sounds like. She's just typing. You can't hear her. Now you're just speaking in metaphor, Blue Nowhere. Okay. You must say your typing voice is equivalent in some fashion to her oral with an AU voice. Ham bone is the tastiest bone. Oh yeah, ham bone. Mm-hmm. You got the ladies thinking you tasty. Congratulations. It's my mom's fault. Kang Krishna Sarmapagu. It's great. Okay, speaking of voices on YouTube, best and worst. Best voice on YouTube. I'm going to go with... I don't know. I kind of like Michael Pierce's voice in his narration videos. It's pretty soothing. It's pretty calming. It's like he's kind of gently rubbing my breast, my just breastal region, my pectoral muscle. Just kind of gently massaging the cramp out of it. I've got cramps there because he's been nursing for a really long time. I covered my car in peanut butter, said Zandy to Winston's mom one day. I covered my car in peanut butter. It still didn't taste very good. I will read something to you guys in a very official sounding voice, okay? So let me find something to read real quick. Read it in a very official sounding voice. Let me find a Wikipedia article. On what? Wikipedia, let's see. Mount St. Helens. What made me think of Mount St. Helens right then? Why? Like, where did Mount St. Helens come from in my brain? There was nothing as far as I could tell that cued me to go Mount St. Helens or anything that was I could think of in recent history that would cause me to think Mount St. Helens. So how did I get from Wikipedia to Mount St. Helens right there? That's one of those things where I have no idea where that one came from. I can't make any SI link or any explanation of that. Why is the first thing that came to mind when I said Wikipedia? What should I Wikipedia Google? Or whatever you call that, search on Wikipedia. Mount St. Helens. Who knows why? Oh, yeah, right. That's what this video is supposed to be about. This is how non-toxic social media is. It is so pleasant sitting around here chatting with you guys. I feel so, comfortable and at home just live streaming and people saying things to me and people being nice to me. And it feels like such a relief after all the battles. I just totally forget what we're even talking about. But I guess the thing is, with all those battles, that's where the toxicity supposedly comes in, I guess. And, people can say some pretty nasty things. People engage in lots of what I would consider toxic rhetoric, whether it's directed at me or not, which is basically, one form of it is the FE intentionality attribution, unwarranted intentionality attribution claim. You're just trying to win the argument. You're not actually right. You just won't admit you're wrong because you're so attached to winning, or like Becky. Well, I got a message from Becky, and then Taylor echoed his sentiment that somehow I was like jealous because I don't know, jealous of Shane or something. It's, you know, it's grasping at straws in the sense that there's just those kind of arguments where you're telling somebody, I'm not going to respond to what you're saying. I'm not going to address anything real. I'm just going to critique you psychologically. Well, you're just probably really insecure. Okay, well, can you answer what I'm saying? Maybe I am real insecure, but I'm saying specific things. Can you maybe answer them? Let's see. So, that's what this one's titled, is Social Media Toxic. I never did watch that thing. Well, can you give me some of the arguments they said or whatever? My point is, I don't see it as toxic. My experience isn't that it's toxic. But the thing is, oh, well, Taylor's behavior elicited some agitation in me for a little while, but doesn't really bother me. I get, and Susie summed it up nicely. He's a bored ESTP. But I understand what happened. No, I mean, Becky bamboozled them. That's a little fourth slot NI for you. And I actually feel bad because I savaged him on the freaking live stream. I mean, not that he wasn't freaking begging for with bullshit, but I didn't have to go that hard. You know, it's like I didn't need to punish him in full force for his failure that I could totally understand. It's like she kind of bamboozled me a bit too. She's a good bamboozler. Shit happens, whatever. I have no hard feelings about it at all towards Taylor. He might have some hard feelings towards me because I mean, the thing is though, have some fucking sense, right? It's like you're rushing into battle without considering, like, oh wait, maybe this isn't the best battlefield for me. If I want to do battle, coming into the live stream and chatting puts them at an immediate disadvantage. And, it's also like, I think fourth slot NI to presume that you've got enough information to get that singular NI, bam, and rely on it. If you don't have enough information, then you can be susceptible to making wrong decisions and stuff. Yeah, well, he could try to diagnose me if he wants, but it's because we haven't talked for a while. We just haven't had a lot of conversations in quite some time. We'll have one soon. And I mean, if he wants to pathologize me, he's gonna have to he's got a long stretch to go, you know? It's pretty tough to pathologize me because if anybody wants to talk to me about, oh, well, I think you're a narcissist, Derek. Okay, well, what exactly does that mean? What behaviors would I be engaging in? What would be cues that we could look to find out if that's the case? People don't want to actually then talk about it because I'm supposed to go, nuh-uh. When you don't do that and you actually want to hear what they say and realize, oh, you're just making a personal attack. Okay, gotcha. When they talk about the here and the now, we want to expand and explore on the here and the now. For us, a cigar is not just a cigar. Well, cigars, I think, are mostly cigars, but lots of other things are many varying different things. And I think cigars have a unique metaphor fluidity. They're not always penises, is what I'm trying to say. Taylor's low maintenance, he's low maintenance, but I'm even lower in my maintaining. So I've got myself to blame for that. He deserves, he has deserved in general, in a couple of ways, more from me than as a friend than I've provided for a while now. And I'm happy to excuse. I mean, it's not even me excusing it. It's me being realistic about the world. It's like I need a failure tolerant environment too. And I can see myself making that kind of mistake. Probably not that one, but you know. So let's see here. The most absurd thing I've heard someone say about you is you're a narcissist. I found it a little shocking too. But even Senjan said in one of the fall videos where I was saying, like, I'm not a narcissist, and I was kind of, at that point I was feeling kind of moist. See, that is the thing. People think sometimes they're like, well, you must be faking that emotion. I'm not faking that emotion, but it's not necessarily entirely about the thing I'm being emotional about. I often have shit going on I'm emotional about here, and then I've got this other thing coming. I hate having wars on more than one front. That's what I hate. And what happened was, Taylor's comment at the end of his video, Kimberly should run or whatever, that caused Kimberly and I to have a big fight. And because, he was basically saying, the stuff that Eric's trying to convince you of all the time is important or significant. The way to go is what the same thing he's trying to do to Becky. Well, that's true. I mean, I was trying to do the same thing to Becky and Kimberly for sure. The difference being, I'm not invested enough in Becky to go back and chase after her and try to get her to talk to me, right? So the thing is, though, about that, there's a fight we needed to have. It was productive in the long run because, well, in part because I spent some time today understanding that it's possible for me to avoid a lot of those TI approaches that I've taken in the past and bypass that to get to a meaningful answer instead of just a symbol of teamwork FE style that bypasses FI, which is what I was looking for basically. And the way to do that, it's like when I'm trying to walk her somewhere, just go directly there. Like, it, like I think I might have already said this earlier in the live stream, but I'll just repeat it quickly, or maybe I didn't. I don't even remember. I said to her, I was trying to walk her down this path of something, but what I was really trying to ask her was, would you be sad if we broke up, if I left, or if you left me? Do you fear that outcome? Do I matter much to you? Because a lot of the words she'll say are things that suggest that she's fine if I leave. She doesn't value me. She'll be fine by her on her own. She doesn't need me at all. Blah, blah, blah. And it didn't really occur to me until I guess today to ask her, like, hey, so how would you feel? How, instead of telling her how to feel, which is my normal fucking approach, right? Look, Kimberly, listen, when I say this, you need to say this. It doesn't matter how you feel. We're not talking about how we feel. I thought, what is this stuff about lying? Well, you can't lie about your feelings because they're subjective. You just say, I affirm this general value of this, meh. Kimberly's not high maintenance. Kimberly's, it's a funny question. In some ways, she's extremely high maintenance. In some ways, she's very low maintenance. And, I, yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, that thing about the story about. So I just asked her, would you be sad? Because normally I try to walk her to giving me the correct answer, to show me, to walk her through this process that she's supposed to provide me the right FEQs so that I know that we can continue ignoring FI entirely and make sure that it doesn't matter whether we actually love each other. We just give each other the right symbols and everything's good. But I just asked her directly, and that's a much more interesting approach. It made me realize how maybe I should stop worrying about whether she's able to translate into my language and just start dealing directly in her feelings, then it'll be a lot more effective. Hopefully. We'll see. It's interesting. I don't know if I'm going to be able to maintain it either. It's like, just because I get the value of the FI shit now, it's easy for me in frustrated moods or when I'm tired or hungry or whatever to slip back into, stop being difficult and just use my attentional modalities, basically. Just stop feeling and you just start thinking right now. I've had enough of your feeling. Okay. Hey, Kimmy. Hey, are you feeling again? You know that's not cool. You stop that. Let's see. Let's see. Blue Nowhere, what type are you? ISTJ or INTJ, I think. Angintier. I miss my INTJ friend. Sorry to hear that, Angintier. Winston's mom, I asked my very ESP husband who thinks he's an ENTJ about what Kim would think. He said, she does not think you are working. I had to think about that, but I understand creating is work. He's sort of right, but it's not really an issue between us. That used to be true a lot more. I think she's evolved a lot, and it took me a while to get her to understand that it was very not a good idea to just sort of generally shit on what I'm doing. Like, that I'm just playing. I'm not doing anything of any value when I'm making shit, unless she could see a direct link to money right away or something. And that was a sore point for a long time. It's nice when people bring up shit that's been resolved for a long time. It's not that way anymore. I think the reason is she's just genuinely learned to respect what I'm doing, mostly because she sees other people respect it. That's very powerful with her. When she sees other people respecting something I do, it liberates her to respect it. Because for fucked up whatever, or just because she's an ISFJ, maybe she's very very hesitant to be on the wrong side of anything, like to be on the wrong side of history, so to speak. Stacy's just gonna chill at your house for a while. Yep. You're in a similar situation to Spacey. You're just chilling at someone's house. How does she recharge? How does Kimberly recharge? She sleeps her ass off. I mean, the woman sleeps like 10, 12 hours a night, at least. So, let's see here. SI users tend to live more in the past since ENFE live. SI force life, they don't have much difficulty remembering past events. Well, okay, but yeah, as say NI backslap maybe, but SI Doms, you gotta remember that what is Kimberly thinking about all the time? She's keeping track of all the things we're supposed to be doing and taking care of and so forth. So little things like, maybe Susie likes this kind of water I remember from last time. So I've got to stock that for Susie. And then like details like that, right? There's shit tons of those kind of things. And she's keeping track of all of that. That's occupying her attention for the full day. And when she stops fretting about these various little things she's got to take care of for the house, for all the people in the house, for just because they need to be taken care of. She's got the laundry, and then I really want to get that thing out of the salon today, and blah, blah, blah. It's just continually that. And when she's reached the end of that, then she starts thinking about what she needs to do tomorrow as she goes and gets into bed. They're spending a lot of time because they're experiential knowers. They have to sort of consciously and willfully know their own life. It's not something they can deal with on a much more efficient way than NI can. And for 4 or 5 people like me or ESTPs, it's pretty balanced. And like my SI is shitty as fuck, but it doesn't really matter because I got a lot of NI to compensate for it. My SI is just there for play, really. It provides shit for any to play with. It's good enough to get me through things so that usually I can finish ordering my McDonald's meal without getting distracted by some thoughts in the middle of doing so, right? It's not. It's like my SI is not so bad that I'm going to forget what I'm doing between here and there. It's good enough to get by in that regard. How does she recharge? Right? She sleeps a lot. She eats. She avoids conflict. I've gotta figure out how to not have those conflicts anymore. So what does it mean if I have the memory of a goldfish? I can only remember things that happened during the day. I get defensive when people ask me to recall past events out of blue nowhere. I would suggest that you might be an item. I mean, you'd obviously be an INFJ if you were. It wouldn't shock me if you were an INFJ. I sort of concluded you were ISFJ. But if your memory is like that, if you don't keep track of what happened to you last year, to some extent, if you don't have any idea of what you were doing last year or anything like that, you're not an SI dumb for sure. Check your vitamin levels. Dreams need nutrients. Vitamins. Yeah. You need vitamin imagination if you want to fuel your dreams. Function follows form, and I am all about organizing things in order to not have to think while I reach for a strawberry. Oh. Function follows form. Form follows function. Oh, I see. Yeah, because you said follows. I wouldn't even caught that. It's a good catch. It's a good self-catch. Catch yourselfer. Vitamins are as real as nuclear weapons. And just as deadly. I can't even remember what I did yesterday. I can. You went down to the Sacramento Bee, the newspaper of Sacramento, and you said, "Ahoy there, reporters. I've got a scoop on a local story." And they all gathered round with their notepads, scribbling as you explained it to them. Zandy, your goldfish dream may be a recurring dream one day. I have lots of dreams that have built upon themselves over the years. You sound like a dream TEer. Sounds like you've had some TE plans in your dreams and you've been executing them over the years. My dreams mostly turn to ash in the bottom of a bong. Marijuana kind of stops you from dreaming, or at least remembering it. You kind of dream differently, or it's not exactly a dream, or something like that. Sacramento. California is stunningly beautiful up north. Carmel was my home. Really? You don't live there anymore? Now you live in Carmel? Oh, interesting. That is a step down. Since mom began life in beautiful Carmel, later as her empire of high-heeled shoe manufacturing companies collapsed, she was forced to downgrade and move to Carmel, just a few miles down the coast, but filled with comparative ghettos. Only a 6-bedroom, 5-bath, nothing bigger than that. Okay, let's see. After the war, Fort Ord we stayed. Sounds like the beginning of a song. It was a good lyrics. Beginning of a country song. After the war, Fort Ord we stayed. Carmel is beautiful. I wish I could live in that country. Fort Ord we stayed. That was Fort Ord we stayed by Winston's Mom and Zandy. Winston's Mom and Zandy is a good band name. I could see myself being the one member of that band. It'd be a great band name for just me playing. Winston's Mom and Sandy. Hi, featuring Winston's Mom and Sandy. Yeah. I walk out. Where's Winston's mom? I don't know who you're talking about. Oh, hi, Dr. Bill. How you doing? I enjoyed your episode today. I watched a little bit of it. Sandy could see yourself, Winston's mom, and Winston too in a group. What's the noise in the background? That's my laptop's fan being noisy and playing its sultry sounds into the microphones, tendering your ears with the ASMR fan noise. If you've ever said to yourself, I want a fan to ASMR at me, then there you go. Ferrets is a logo. I mean, for my band, Winston's Mom and Sandy. Winston's Mom and Sandy themselves could make an occasional featured appearance in the band Winston's Mom and Sandy. And they could each play the xylophone. It could be me, Winston's mom, and Zandy. I'll be on guitar and voice. Winston's mom and Zandy will both be on xylophone. Because you can never have too much xylophones. It's good. I'd like to have, let's say, me, guitar and mic, Zandy, Winston's mom, Amber Drasher, and Zaylin Black. Who else? There's going to be all ladies in my band. Lady. Annie H., who left, but she's still going to be in my band. That's enough ladies. Okay, so Annie H., Amber Drasher, Zandy, Winston's mom, and Zaylin Black are all going to play xylophones, and I'm going to play guitar and sing. And they're all going to play different parts, each on their own xylophone. Of course, everything will be perfectly in tune and key and matched up and everything. Excellent counterpoint and so forth. So I'll have the xylophones. I'll have different registers of xylophones. We'll have bass xylophone, alto xylophone, tenor xylophone, mezzo soprano xylophone, and soprano xylophone. Yeah, Dr. Phil, I want some advice too. Can I have some advice, Dr. Phil? Okay, I have a problem for Dr. Phil. Wait, see, Bloom won't know where. That's a good question. Is it going to be a changing day in my life? I will have to phone in my music because I do not go outside where the people are. Okay. All right, fine. It's fine. We can project a holograph of you. Yes, we argue, but I can never remember, so I just throw the towel and forget about it. I can't remember. I have no argument. That doesn't sound good, Zandy. Does the human race actually fit into 4 types? No. 16. It doesn't fit into 4. It's crammed. You've got 4 overly crammed compartments. 16? No. Perfectly spaced. They're not crammed. Not crammed at all. Eric, I need a moral advice. My maternal uncle is highly OCD, IC, and highly depressed. He seems an INFP. I'm thinking of putting mushrooms in his food, hoping to cure his depression. Do you think I should do it? I mean, have you talked to him about it? What do you think would happen if you suggested he take it or encouraged him to take it? I mean, as a general rule, I would say it's almost it's never going to pass the universal check of ethics to say, yeah, you should in regards to that. But it's like, would it be immoral for me to put marijuana in my mom's food? No, I don't think so. But she's got Alzheimer's disease or whatever it is, and The thing is, I've there's evidence that suggests low dosage of marijuana consistently would provide some memory restoration, or has in mice anyway. So I don't know. So it's basically the same question. I don't consider it immoral for me to do that because I can't get consent from my mom. She's not really capable of giving consent or having much of a say in that sort of thing. And so I find it acceptable. If your uncle, and it sounds like he is able to give consent or not give consent, then normally one would say to do it without his consent would be immoral and unacceptable. If somebody feels as though genuinely believes and has good cause to believe that, for example, he's about to kill himself and it's a last ditch attempt to save him or something, then one might feel as though the particulars of the situation justify ignoring the moral prohibition. That would be a decision that an individual would have to make on the particulars. But regarding the universals, no, it would never be okay. Again, there's a challenge for a meta-rationalist, which is that you want to be principled and you want there to be a clean, clear understanding of how normative considerations work, and concurrently, the universe isn't that reducible to language. So the challenge then is to be principled but not dogmatic, flexible but not relativistic, flexible but not arbitrary, willing to adjust to the particulars but still consistent in maintaining the integrity of the system. It's a complicated combination of factors to play in, and underlying it all, I think, needs to be, if you want to make correct moral decisions, number one, a correct assessment of your own motivations, like making sure that you're motivated correctly, which should take some time. I mean, maybe not for F5 people, I don't know, and then I think secondly, you have to check to see if it's consistent with the universal, and then third, if you still feel the need that you want to do it anyway, you've got to work through all the specifics of that on a TI. This is how I would do it: work through all the specifics on a TI level and see what kind of justifications I might attempt to make were I to do it, and see how convincing those are, and whether or not I'm convinced by them, and whether or not I feel any sort of like instinctual revulsion to the notion of what I want to do, or whether I feel fine about it. And that has a lot to do with it too, I guess. I don't know. It's complicated. So the answer to the question is universally, no, it's not okay. But particular emergency circumstances or something, I don't know. I mean, you got to make your own decisions, and really it would depend on my mom was a censor though, or is a censor. She's an ISFJ. I mean, the thing is, if he doesn't consent to it and you do it to him anyway, then you don't know how he's going to react to that. You do know that no matter how well or poorly he reacts to that, he's not going to trust you, probably, about certain things, Okay, so let me see what's going on here. I apologize to Becky for being a twat. In regards to that, I don't even want to play that silly game. If you did any sort of looking into things and heard the other people who were here and understood some things, then maybe you wouldn't waste my time. The thing to remember is, I'm not trying to excommunicate Becky or call her persona non grata. And concurrently, I've yet to hear a legitimate critique of anything I've done. She never invested in me any trust at all. She never attempted to hide what she was doing. She never told me or asked me to hold off publishing things till the following week. She never, like I said, invested any trust in me at all. She didn't discuss anything with me. She wouldn't discuss anything with me. And I might consider that it would have been better had I waited simply because of the FE consequences. But if I need to apologize to Becky for something, what is it exactly? Can you tell me? For being a twat, you have to be a little more specific than that. Like, are you applying this standard to Becky at all? Have you looked into her behavior here, whether she was a good guest, polite guest? You know, Abraham went to the raw room, talked to a bunch of people last night, and, explained that she was just being a rude house guest. Wouldn't talk to me about it then after I mentioned it, only because people kept bringing it up to me. The cheating thing, keep in mind, she wasn't trying to hide it. She just sort of assumed that I wouldn't get around to publishing things about it until next week, so it would happen on her timetable, right? She wasn't thinking she was going to continue hiding when she got back there. She was just wanted to more conveniently use her boyfriend for the duration of her absence, which, whatever. I didn't out her for that purpose. I was just telling my story. After all, without talking to me at all about how she wanted the story told or what she'd like me to keep private or meh, she walked out of my house with both middle fingers raised to me because I tried to talk to her about being a rude house guest. So maybe you should think a little bit more about this. I don't know what the fuck you're thinking. I didn't do shit. Well, Inga Jorgenberg says sometimes apologizing is good to do whether you believe you did anything wrong. It's if you want things to go back to okay. If I want things to go back to okay, I need to require Becky to be accountable like anybody else. I mean, what that means is she's not going to, this conversation is certainly not going to start with me apologizing for anything because I didn't do anything and I have nothing to apologize for. I could express regret potentially, but regardless, that would be a waste of both of our times. She's not going to benefit from anything except coming to me with humility and shame and asking for my help in managing a clusterfuck of a quagmire that she's gotten herself into. I don't wish ill on the woman. I thought she was nice. I thought she was cool. I was fond of her. I'm not. I mean, people come, people go. I've been doing this for a long time. I've had lots and lots of people come through here, interact with them for a while, and they move on. I move on to different interactions and new, opaloid and lots of people coming in and are kind of, I feel especially enthusiastic for a stretch, and they do too, and then they fade away, and that's fine. It doesn't bother me. It's part of the game, With Becky, I found her particularly insightful, fun to talk to, stuff like that. Fun to talk to when we had topics to talk about anyway. I found when I was just sort of chatting with her one-on-one that we were so similar that there wasn't much to say, really. It was like we both kind of got that we wanted other audience than the other person because neither of us is a great audience member, But regardless, I don't condemn her as a person for her failings, but if she won't be accountable for them and approach it the right way, then I'm not interested in wasting my time. I got other shit to do. If she wants to come to me as a supplicant seeking help, I will be happy to provide some because I feel like we kind of owe her some. She has helped us. I don't really think we need her anymore. I think that whole event helped sort of solidify things in our heads about our relationship that were in my head, I guess, mostly, I should say. I realized some things like, okay, well, what's actually valuable in a person? And when I heard Kimberly unbidden by me, I didn't ask her about it at all. When I heard her explain her reasoning for why, you should never cheat and why it was a bad idea and stuff, and it was just so clearly the obvious truth that she spoke, made me realize, Kimberly has got character and that matters, and maybe I need to remember that it's not always the metric I'm looking at in front of me that matters most. That's another FI polar thing, I guess. Okay, let's see here. The fork in the road less traveled perhaps. It's hard to see the people we love wave goodbye and take the other lane where they sometimes meet again. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm available to talk with if she wants to. But it's like I finally got a message today from her, or maybe it was yesterday, I don't know. Kimberly checked my phone and said something like, I think I mentioned this earlier, that I was just jealous of um, Shane. There's some other suggestion that I had a crush on Becky and was jealous or something, and she spread to infected Taylor with. He echoed. That's absolute fucking garbage. I mean, and Kimberly scoffed at the notion and immediately said, her first response was, do you think I would invite her to our house if there was even a shred of possibility of that? Because what she could see and I could see and I could feel and Becky could feel too is this sort of, incestuous thing, if that were to ever or even feel that way. It felt like dealing with my clone almost. So one who's not learned some critical lessons about character. And I do very much hope she does, but that's going to require her to trade in her pride for growth, as most people have to do eventually. Trade your pride for growth, because where are you going to grow? Places that you're feeling prideful about, insecure about, whatever about, Pride's the real great sin of all. There's somebody I was communicating with an email who's like a Christian guy, and I don't mind talking to the Christians. Sometimes they give me a whole shit ton of Christian stuff, and it's like, Jesus, I'm not gonna read that whole fucking email about all this Christian specifics or whatever. But the message he was trying to instill in me was pride is the single worst of all the sins, and it's source of all the other sins. And I mean, I don't know, but the point is, yeah, probably because pride prevents growth. I'm saying a lot tonight. I'm just kind of tired. I'm super tired. I've been to Venezuela way back when. It is a country of dichotomy. I never deserved better. Venezuela, huh? Every government official is an authority figure by definition. Authority figures, huh? No me gusta authority figures. The people elected Hugo Chavez. Oh, Blue Nowhere. Are you some sort of commie? Don't be a commie, Blue Nowhere. That's no fun. They always want to use violence to steal everybody's money. People always want to accuse me of being guilty of the things I accuse others of, right? Like, you say, Eric, that growth always follows, a collapse of pride in some regard, or humility. Well, where's your turn to be humble? Where's your turn to swallow your pride? Well, I mean, I think I do that all the time. Like, I, I mean, less now, but I used to. It was a long series of time, and when it would be like, watch Eric, you know, get a good amount of sleep, start off great, and then watch us go to about 2 weeks, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, he's screaming at somebody, and um, just, and then after that, you get the apology videos. Hey, everybody, I'm sorry I yelled at you so much in that video, and it was fucked up with me because I don't know, I just overreacted and it wasn't appropriate. I would make those videos too, right? So I don't have to make them as often anymore. I still occasionally have to make some sort of video like that where I can see that, yeah, this is, so yeah, I do have to do that. But I think what people don't like is what they really want. If they want to see me sort of taken down a notch, they want to see me humbled, not on my terms, right? That's in general what people want and what frustrates them. And I realize how frustrating some aspects of ENTP must be. Um, I got to see Becky in action, dissembling, and what Kim sometimes accuses me of. And I think, like, hey, I'm not doing that. You always just talk your way out of everything, explain away everything again. Could you put flavors of fruit in the bong? I mean, I could put, like, flavored water or something in the bong. I could presumably put fruit flavoring on the weed. I don't know if it would be smokable or not. I mean, you could bong through like soda or beer or something. I don't drink beer, but you have enough SE to carry out a 2-hour live stream. Check your email again sometime. Hey, listen, Kuk Senpai, one of the things that Spacey's going to do here supposedly is he's supposed to be like function my secretary here for a while and check my email and shit. So, today turned out crazy because I ate up another 5 hours or whatever dealing with my mom and getting Susie from the airport, which happened nicely to coincide, so I didn't have to waste any hours. But yeah, I have Spacey here, and the one thing I said, listen, I got one thing I need you to do for me though. And this is basically it. Please, please, please check my email and answer for me, and say to me, Eric, what should I say here? And I'll go, yeah, like that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he's got worse SE than I do. But if I prod him about it, he'll probably do it because of 4th slot FE. So, Venezuela was a pitcher for the Dodgers. He threw the screwball, early 80s, Fernando Venezuela. And people talk about him as though he were a small country, but really just a man from Mexico. I'm going to pull one more bong rip. And then I'm going to push the old end stream button here. Yeah. Responding to emails. The problem with it is, Kuk Senpai, if I knew I could just open that thing and go right to your email and not accidentally see something that I might feel like I have to deal with, which is what I'm really trying to avoid here. It's like, opening the email is dangerous. What if there's some piece of important news that you can't justify ignoring right now? And you have to deal with it, and that would be like, you know what I'm saying? Pretty tough on me. It's a lot of expectation. The thing that bothers me most about my not checking an email, and this is my 3rd slot FE, obviously, is when people out there are thinking that I'm mad at them for some reason because I'm not responding to their emails. And then I get the email saying, I've offended you. I'm sorry. And I'm like, yeah, you did not offend me. You should not be saying you're sorry. You did nothing wrong. I'm not mad at you. I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And, my lack of response doesn't mean anything. So that makes me feel sad when I think that people are in states of FI because they've interpreted something that I didn't mean at all just because I'm haphazard about shit. It makes me want to reassure them or something like in advance. You have a default response email. Hello, I am not offended. You did not offend me. I don't know what you're talking about. So don't even go there. Yeah, Venezuelan chicks are hot, sure. You got your Venezuelan chicks, your Peruvian chicks, your Guatemalan chicks, your Azerbaijani chicks, your all kinds of shit. Right. Well, look, when I'm president, Blue Nowhere, I am very much a small government guy, especially for the federal government. But I'm also not some sort of nutty anarcho-capitalist or whatever. I'm not even, I wouldn't call myself a full blast libertarian. I'd say that I have a fairly nuanced understanding of how sort of the TI principalist approach should be integrated and how more of a TE or FE analysis, yeah, something like that. That's my declamation. Is that what you mean to say? Like, I've never seen anybody use the verb declaim before in the chat, or I know what it means. It's a really rarely used verb. Did you mean to use that verb, or is that a misspelling, or what? Because I had a student who won national champion in declamation a long time ago now. It was good 10, 15 years ago. 10 years ago. 12 years ago, maybe. Anyway, declamation. To declaim is to basically, disclaimer. Oh. I wish you were saying that was your declamation. And it would have been correct because a declamation is a recited, quoted thing, which you just quoted there. Usually it's like an oration speech, like 7 ago is declamation. You've not slept in 42 days. That's a long ass time to not sleep. You must really be tired. How's what I describe different than rejecting it? What did you describe as rejecting what? I don't know. I get annoyed at people being over replied and stuff when there's no need to be. That low FEFI, what position causes me to despise it? It would be a low FE, probably fourth, maybe third. Probably not seventh. Seventh, you wouldn't be so reactive to it. Could be eighth, probably fourth or eighth, I'd say. More likely fourth. Authority figures are not necessarily dictators, simply a parental or maternal figure who is in charge, as opposed to a community-based role. Well, yeah, I mean, there are, but see, this is the thing. Authority figures, right? It's like, I don't mind there being decision makers. I don't mind there being leaders of a sort, but they should have the scope of their leadership very tightly constrained. They shouldn't be like general leaders. They should be, okay, you are the leader of who makes the decision about what kind of printers to use. You seem to be best at that, and then that's their job, is to be the leader of that. They have to be the leader. They have their leadership of that thing, and don't let it expand beyond that. The problem is with our political leaders is the constraints of their job are too poorly defined. So Kangan Krishna Sarmapagu says ITJs will feel repulsed at FE inferior. Oh, do they? Maybe I'm wrong about that then. Maybe it is. Or I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I hear ISTPs and young INTPs being really voicing a lot of frustration about FE. As they get older, of course, they develop a more nuanced relationship to it. It kind of depends on your age in that regard. It's kind of a steady development thing for NTPs. ENTPs might get frustrated with it, but they'll adopt it soon enough, you know. Yes, there has to be some oversight. I'll tell you one thing I believe in, and a lot of libertarians don't, is I believe in environmental regulation. And mostly for TE reasons. I live in California. When I was a kid, we had third stage smog alerts on a regular basis. They wouldn't let us go play at recess. My eyes, everyone's eyes would sting. It would hurt to breathe. It was a regular thing. You know, many days in Los Angeles were like that. And now it's never like that. And it got a lot better by the time I was like a teenager. And it's all because of all the smog laws and shit that they made. All the fucking hassles we had to deal with our cars. Well, it paid off, you know. I've also been to China, and I've seen what it looks like when you don't have environmental regulations. It's a fucking nightmare. And I also know that it's good for everybody's sort of spiritual, mental health to have a pleasant, natural environment, and to have green space to go do shit in, and to protect and just wild spaces and stuff for their own sake, for no other purpose than it's worth leaving wild and preserving, because it's cool, you know. I don't know why, just because it's like it's responsible stewardship. It's like there's something to be had for something to be said for just responsible stewardship in and of itself. You know, being prudent, not exploiting everything immediately. It's just a matter of freaking the country needs a responsible adult in charge. The country needs somebody who's not just responsible and well-intentioned, but extremely well-informed about politics and stuff. And additionally, somebody who's meta-rational, not married to any ideology, able to be flexible when necessary and show integrity when necessary, and avoid creating conflicts between flexibility and integrity by arbitrariness. You know, that's the challenge, and I believe I really am probably the only person in the country who can maximally do the job well. It's not going to solve all the country's problems. It's not going to change the world, but that's my opinion. I think right now, you know, the government's doing a particularly shitty job. The president's doing a terrible job. And I want to be president because the country needs me. And my dad raised me to be a patriot. It's one thing that, you know, he never was going to tolerate any jokes about or anything. We took our hats off during the national anthem, and we saluted, you know, put our hands on our hearts, and respected the country, and we respected America because of its rights-based framework, basically. And, you know, I was raised to believe the Supreme Court was our shining knights, that they protected individual rights against government intrusion. And I was shown, you know, movies about constitutional law when I was a little kid, and my dad would talk to me about that shit. It makes me emotional. But I don't find social media toxic. It's not toxic at all. It's made me into a human being. It's like prior to YouTube, I was a fraction of my current self. And it's not because like YouTube makes me shit tons of money, so I changed my life that way. It's more like YouTube allowed me to become a much more realized person by having lots of actual human interactions with lots of different people, including people in a live stream like this and whatever else. And it forced me to be accountable to what it means to be good or not. And, it's like what it means to be mean. That, okay, Eric, your TI here is let you, other people are perceiving you as mean or inconsiderate or abusive to those people or a douchebag or whatever, and you don't really want to be perceived as that, and maybe there's a reason why they're perceiving you like that, and is it kind of douchey, and how can you determine whether that's the case? And you have to think through all that shit. So, for me, it's been a sculpting experience. It's sculpted me into a different and a better person, but it does require you to have some thick skin, because it's absolutely the case that sometimes you get savaged. I can handle it, no problem. I will savage them back. And I generally feel like I'm going to be better at that than other people if it comes down to it. But I'm not looking out. I'm not going out there to savage people anymore at all, myself, the way that I used to. I used to be, cancer sort of on the internet, like a long time ago, maybe in my late 20s or something, where if somebody pissed me off, my goal was to figure out how to, squeeze every ounce of suffering out of them that any words on the internet can possibly affect upon somebody. And I'm not like that anymore. I'm not. I mean, sometimes I still get in freaking fist fights like I did today with Taylor, where I was rather harsh about him, unnecessarily so, probably. I was feeling my wild oats or something. Feeling my oats. Feeling like I wanted to exercise a little testosterone or something. Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't really being fair. Because I knew or should have known that he wasn't going to hold those narratives for long, and he just needed to hear from me instead of just Becky. Okay, so anyway, do I feel the wild oats when you braided my hair? I haven't braided my hair yet, but any minute now, I'm sure you start braiding it. Okay, it's 2 hours. I'm gonna call it a night. I gotta go to bed. I'm tired, dewired, confused, and old. So that means I better go to bed before I grow old. The end. Thanks for being here, everybody. Sweet dreams. Don't let the bed bugs bite. I'm made of these. Fight, fight, fight. Oh, that hairstyle. I think I just felt like a hipster.